There you go.
Yeah, all good, Vamsi. Go ahead.
Start. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vamsidhar Gudladona, and I'm going to present you my recommended solution for the Global Adventure Tours. Before we dwell into the solution, just a quick overview of the company. Global Adventure Tours specializes in the boutique tours. They are a multinational company spread across the world, and they have a current landscape of system which is quite disoriented, and it's at the end of the life. So they thought this is a very good opportunity for them to streamline their process and enhance it with certain automations along with the process. With that as a North Star, let's dwell into my system landscape, where I'm going to recommend my recommendations of what the current landscape is and what the future landscape is going to be. A quick overview, anything in the red markings is the systems that I'm recommending to decommission. So let's start with those systems first. We do have a trade management system, which they call TMS, which is at the end of life, which I'm recommending to decommission. I also have certain business that they run through spreadsheets, which is a very valuable tool, but not an automated one. So I recommend to even decommission that. And they do have current Salesforce systems on multiple regions. The reason for to decommission these Salesforce systems is we exactly don't know the business process behind it and how much of usage case that they have, the unification process, and to make sure that they get the best out of the system and make sure there are no impacts to the BAU process. I'm also recommending to decommission these current Salesforce systems. And then going forward, the new Salesforce system would be a single org. We are going to support it with multi-language and multi-currency. The reason for the single org is that they want to unify the process. They want to see the customer 360-degree view, and an adventurer who is a customer can buy a tour across the world. So the customer is moving from region to region. So it actually gives them a better view of the customers with a customer 360 view. I'm going to also use Salesforce files within the system. They do have a requirement to store files within the system, and the usage calculations are well within the limits. So I'm going to recommend them to use Salesforce files. In terms of the app extension projects, we do have a round robin distributor for equal distribution of leads and the rest of the things. We do have a form assembly, which will link to the website, wherein we are going to collect the leads. The reason for going with form assembly is we need to make sure that they have files being updated, attached during the lead creation process. And we then do have congruent document generation and e-signature capabilities. In terms of Salesforce being connected, we are going to connect it through ESB for process orchestration, protocol converter, and error handling. And ESB is connected to the payment force, which is their in-house built payment gateway system, the data warehouse system, which we use for data migrations and data activities. Sorry, there should be a missing link. There is a missing link in data warehouse and ESB, which data would be rendered in Salesforce using the OData connector of Salesforce Connect. Secondly, we do have, and it is also connected to Service Flow, which is their service dispatch system. TOS, which is the travel operator systems, which are being connected to ESB through EDI protocol. The customers would log into the system using mobile publisher or through social media channels. The Salesforce internal users would be logging through Salesforce Mobile. For all the internal users, we'll have Okta as an IAM solution, which is connected to Active Directory, where we'll use SCP service provider initiated SAML protocol. There is an LDAP system for the for the travel operators to also log in, and they will also log in through Okta using the same SP initiated SAML. Moving across, just have a quick overview of the identification process within the system. So let's start with the left. The customers would log in through Wisdom's social media. So we'll be using the OIDC protocols where the custom reg handlers and the auth providers would be created in the system. We are going to recommend them with a mobile publisher app, and then the mobile publisher app will have a persistent login using user agent flow. The internal users, as discussed, would use Salesforce Mobile, would again have a user agent flow for persistent logging. And if they want to log in separately, they'll be using Okta, which is connected to their Active Directory or DAP systems going through SPWS SAML initiated flow. The proof process and data orchestration systems, which are ESB and ETL, they both will be connected and secured connection through mutual TLS, and their authentication process would be a JWT flow. Before move on to the data model, let's quickly have a quick overview of who are the actors and their role hierarchy in the organization. There is a top role hierarchy and presenting as a CEO, and I have split the division into two roles. One is the tour management, and there is a service management role. Within the regional management tour, this part of the roles are replicated for each region separately. So with the regional manager for tours, have two reportees within him, that travel coordinators, tour operator coordinators, who have responsible for the tour coordinator managers who have responsibility of tour coordinators, and they have an external relationship with the tour operators, office managers, and tour operator staff. On the right-hand side, you see the adventure specialist manager who have a responsibility of adventure specialist and who in turn have responsibility of the tour guides who are the external users. So anything that is represented in dotted line are the external users. On the right-hand side, you see the regional manager for service, and they have service coordinator managers and service coordinators who help the customers within their service inquiries. Now, quickly overviewing their licenses, the two operator coordinators stream would get sales license, or internal users will get a sales license for CRM analytics. Sales license because of the lead and the opportunity management they're going to use, and there is an analytical reporting requirement because there is a large volume data which we are going to archive into the data warehouse, and CRM analytics is best placed tool to measure to get that reporting requirements for the users. Adventure specialists who are predominantly would be handling the tour operators business would have the sales license because they'll be handling the leads and opportunities. Service coordinator would have a service cloud license where they will be handling the service case management request, but they will be accessing through console and entitlements, hence service cloud license. The regional managers will have sales and CRM analytics license for the trend reporting and the overall picture of the business. Coming on to the external users, we have tour operators for external licenses. They will be using, I think I should update it. They'll be using a CC plus login users. They'll have a CC plus login based license. The reason being they have a reporting requirements. The tour guides who also have a CC plus login based license. The reason for this, they have advanced sharing requirements based on availability of the tools, which we'll be discussing later. And the adventure seekers who are the actual end customers will have a CC logins, and the predominant use case is going to be orders and case management. Now, let's quickly go on to the data model. Just a quick overview. Anything in black is a standard object. The pink is the custom object, and brown is the external object. And I have and the default data model, default sharing rule is private, and until unless mentioned, the lookups are lookups. Then we have a representation of LDV with this purple indication, and anything that is publicly and OWD, you can see with the PR with this color coding here on the top. So what we have represented from the customers. Customers are represented with leads during the prospect migration. This is predominantly for the tour operators. Then we have account where we'll activate the person accounts because it will be both B2B and B2C functionality, which will have three recorders for tour operators, adventurers, and travel and tour guides. And they have a look up into the contact. There are two custom objects that I'm going to link with the tour operators here, which is a preferred payment. This is the payment functionality for predominantly for adventures where they have multiple card information, which are even stored in the payment for system. But for easier purposes, we'll store the tokenized information in Salesforce so we can reuse it with to enhance the customer experience. And the book tour types is a roll up of all kinds of tour types that the user has been booking over 5 years, because this will be used to suggest better tools for the customer within his customer journey. There is also a requirement for the tour operators information of risks to be maintained. This is going to be a private data model object owned only by the TOCs, which is the tour travel operators. Now, moving on to the sales part of the cycle, whenever the tour is being recommended, the tour object as a private will be created with the tour and the tour schedule as a draft scenario. During the draft process, we will have an opportunity to manage the process and negotiation. There is no pricing negotiation that is going to happen, but it's a forecasting negotiation to say how many tours are going to come into the picture, and this will be better reporting for the users to understand. Once a tour and tour schedule are about to be made live, there need to be payment that needs to be done. We'll be using an order and order line items to manage the payment, and the fees is going to change per user per region. So we'll have products and price book entries. This is PBE, sorry. Products, price book entries and products would be maintained, and then the order would store the payment information across to the users. Once the tour has been made live, it is going to be converted into a live tour and the live tour schedules, which will have a look up into the tour bookings, which are the actual tour bookings done by the adventurers. And we'll also have a tour guide linked to each live scheduled tour to make sure that the tour guide is available for any thrill-seeking tours that the user is going through happen. For any case management scenarios, we do have cases being triggered for service coordination because each cases have to be guided through case milestones. Strict SLAs will have entitlements linked to the cases, and case milestones and Case milestones will give you the milestone violations and actions that would be required. At the end of a case, we also want to capture the survey for the feedback of the customer. So we'll have the survey objects for survey response, survey, and survey invitation being executed. Tour bookings is an LTV object for me, so I'm going to migrate. I'm going to move all the tour bookings into an external object, which will have indirect lookup to the account information. For order and order items, which are LTVs, I'm not recommending them to have an order history because most of the tour booking information would have the order history. Until the payment information is required, these objects can be converted to external objects if required. But as of now, I'm not recommending that approach. Now, quickly, let's move on to the solution architecture of this business. In the first scenario, we are talking about the tour operators being prospected and being onboarded into the GAT business model so they can sell their tours. In the first scenario, they are going to fill up the information on the website. I'm recommending them to have a form assembly as an app exchange partner with form assembly corrector. Once the lead is being created, we'll have the lead assignment rules, which will assign the rules to queues. And from the queues, we need to assign these rules in a round robin fashion. So we'll have a super round robin distribution engine that would be used to assign the leads to one of those TOCs in a round robin fashion. Within this requirement as well, we do have a scenario where the leads should also provide us certain files to understand the certificates and everything. Hence, I'm recommending with the form assembly because with Web2 lead, we cannot capture files. Form assembly comes with the ability to capture files, and we can store up to 20 files for each 32 MB in size. So the size here is 10 MB itself. So we should be able to use form assembly connector to create the files against the leads, and that information would be passed on to Salesforce directly. Once the TOCs within the global tour adventures can collaborate between their team members. So we are going to use record-based chatter for this collaboration purposes. And when the TO verifies, currently they use some macro-based spreadsheets to determine what is the risk factor of a certain lead. This we are going to automate using an after record trigger flow. Once a lead is created, these factors that will be considered, which will be the part of the information that is being taken. We'll consider this information a risk score is being created. And we also know that for going forward, injuries and fatalities will be stored in the risk object so that the information is always updated. So we can keep track of the risk score automated. Every time an account or a lead is updated, the risk score gets automated as well. In kinds of a lead scenario, if the risk score is less than 50, then there should be a certain process that needs to be followed. In this scenario, if it is greater than 50, then we are going to have a record trigger flow after record trigger flow, which will then trigger the round robin distributor, which will then assign the lead to the adventure specialist. We are talking about the capacity-based planning here. I'm going to go with a custom solution on this capacity-based planning where within the business, we are going to define what is the capacity of an adventure specialist, how many leads he can handle at a given point of a time. And this will be a roll-up field that will be maintained on the customer itself. And we'll have an after record trigger flow to update this field on the user to say when a number of leads, open leads are assigned to the customer and a lead is closed, we'll have the same flow to increase or decrease the number accordingly. So once a lead is assigned to the adventure specialist, he wants to create a email to the customer saying that this is the time and date that he's going to propose to visit. I'm going to represent that with an event against the lead. Sorry, I should have that in my data model. So there should be an event object here, which is linked to the lead. Once the event has been created, we'll have a record after record trigger flow to send the email to the customer with the event date and time so that the adventure specialist and the tour operators can have the conversation about their managing their tours through the GAT business. Adventure specialists can also approve and cancel the registration. So this is what we are going to use the lead status management for. Based on the status that he is going to, based on the information that he has done on the event management, on the event visit, he can set the lead status, and he can also do that using Salesforce mobile app. If the score is less than 50, or we have the AS completed when the score is more than 50, we'll submit the documentation. So we'll again have once a lead status is approved, the lead would go through a lead assignment rules and send it back to the TOC. The TOC would then will verify the documentation, and he'll then start with the lead conversion process. Once a lead is converted, he's going to create an account and contact information. And once the contact information is created, we'll have Once a account and contact information is created, on the account and contact, we'll have a after record ticker flow, which will run in a synchronized event, which will a synchronous process will send a VF email template. At this point of time, I should also have mentioned that it will also create the users for the tour operators, so they'll get a welcome email into the portal as well. The reason I'm sending two emails here is the one is to just welcoming the relationship and confirming the details of what the TOC, who is the representative TOC. The second email is going to be a welcome email from the portal asking them how to log on to the portal and the rest of the information accordingly. The tour operator would then set up the creators, so the tour operators will then have a custom LWC flow wherein hold on, sorry. The tour operator is going to set up the contact as a creator in the system. So what we are going to do is as soon as the contact has been created in the account, we are going to trigger a flow with which is a platform in. That is our first integration. This is a fire and forget flow because the payment force would actually have the information, will create the creator information accordingly. And once the creator information is updated in the Salesforce system, we'll have integration too, which is going to be the payment force sending information back into Salesforce using a remote call-in to update the creator as an extra creator ID as an external ID on the account ID of the tour operator. So we know we can link the tour operator with the platform, with the creator ID in the payment for system. Now, moving on, once the creator has been set, once the payment tour operator has been set up, this is the scenario where the tour operators are going to log on to the system and set up their scheduling. So once the tour operator login, we'll have a screen flow to for the tour operators to set up the schedule, which is basically the tour plus the tour schedule objects in here. Once the 2+2 schedule objects have been created, we'll have an after record triggered flow on the tour proposal to create an opportunity for AS to track. So the tour would be linked up into the opportunity so that the AS can track the tour schedules and also report on the opportunity for any negotiations that are going to happen regarding the schedule. The tour schedule object would be used to calculate the 12 months, would be used to build the 12 monthly schedule for the tours. Any AS in the region can view the tours and their schedules. So we'll have a custom for AS to review the tours, we'll have a custom LWC on the opportunity itself. So when they click on the proposed opportunity or when in the opportunity, they have a list view of all the opportunity linked and the tours linked. And with the tours that are linked, they can actually update the opportunity status as well as the tours approval status within the custom LWC itself. So rather than going through multiple clicks on the related list of the records, we are going to have a custom LWC for them to have a better user experience. The proposed system should automatically check the tour guides that are not booked. So, and after the cortical flow is going to check for the tour guide booking for the proposed date. So we have the tour guide object here to cross-check whether the tour guide is booked across within the same scheduled time or not. So this would actually cross-check if the tour guide is available or not. And if there is not available, if there is a clash, it's going to flag up on the tour schedule to say that there is a clash with the tour guide booking during that point. We need to create once the tour booking has been confirmed, we need to create a PDF format to display this tool. For this, we will have a record flow where we'll be using Koga Composer to generate a PDF and attach the PDF file to the tour so that this PDF can be reutilized by the email functionality or any other functionality where this can be sent across to the users who don't have access into the system. Once AS has completed the review, the created account is debited from the payment force. So for this, we'll have the same LWC where the tour status has been set to approved. The LWC would then first create an order with the price book and price book product and price book entry for the ordered product for the regional prices. Once that is done, we'll have an integration tree, which is going to be a Salesforce to ESB to payment force, which is a request and reply pattern with flow plus external services for the create amount and transaction. We are going to get the confirmation whether the payment has been successful or not. If the payment has been successful, the opportunity status will be updated with the success message, and the order message also updated. The opportunity has been closed. Order has with the message that payment has been successfully updated. And we will have an asynchronous record flow on the opportunity, which will then create live tour and live schedule from the tour schedule object here. And the tour schedule object will be set with status approved. And this live object would have the OWD setting as public read, so anybody can read this live tour and live test schedule objects, and this can be published onto the website for tours to be sold. An email notification is then sent to the customer. So we'll have a record flow on tour to send the emails, and we'll have the PDF that was generated earlier to be attached to say this is the confirmed tour that has gone across. The tour operators can mark the tour to auto-renew each other. The auto-renewal part would be a flag that is actually set onto the tour itself during the creation, and will make sure that flag is copied across in the live tour. Uh, Once the live tour, then we'll have a daily scheduled job which will check for the live tour date, and this auto renewal is generally going to be 30 or 60 days before the end of the tour expiry or the last schedule, and the the daily job is going to trigger the new scheduled tour creation, and we'll also create a renewal orders, and we'll reutilize integration 3, which is the payment functionality uh, to send out a payment information so that the payment can be updated back, or payment can be credited, debited, and once the payment is successful, then we'll create it on the successful creation of the on successful creation of the payment. A recordical flow on the order with the asynchronous flow would create the new tour schedule based on the current tour schedule, so that will create a live tour object and a live tour schedule object for the growing new. Sorry, it will have the same live tour, but it will have the same live tour object, but a new live tour schedules for the new years would be created. Moving on to the adventure request, now the customers are ready to browse to the catalog and book for their adventures. So the customers can log in the system when they have a custom LWC where they can go through the live tours and live schedule. The reason for the custom LWC is we want to give them a better user experience. So rather than through a screen flow, they can search for various things of information, and you do see that they need to have a map component built in as well. So to allocate for better user experience, I'm recommending a custom LWC here. They can use this LWC on a mobile publisher app as well. And they do have a functionality of filtering on the LWC itself. They can filter based on the risk level of any information. This is a requirement here where we want to recommend them tours based on the past 5 years. So as did mention earlier, the tour bookings is an LDB object. So we'll be archiving the tour data at very frequent intervals after the tour is done. So every time a tour has been booked, we'll have a after recordical flow, which will then update the booking tour type in the count up the tour type and booking tour type. I'm assuming that they have 20 different tours of 500 different operators, so that number of tour types will not less be more than 30 or 40. So we'll have the tour types as the pick list values, and this can be built up, and the count of each tour type that they have been used for last 5 years can keep on going up and going down, and that can give them and that can give us a better functionality within LWC to recommend them the right tour types. Once the adventure can make a booking on a particular tour date, the same customer LWC would create a tour booking object and also create an order product. At that point of time, there will be an integration 4 which will route the user to a payment page. Here, I'm assuming that the payment force, because it's a in-house payment force system, payment gateway system, they do have a hosted page ability as well, which they are currently using. So I'm going to reutilize that hosted payment page for this integration 4 from Salesforce to ESB to payment force, which is a request and reply pattern through Apex callout. If we have a hosted page call redirect where when the user finishes the payment on the hosted page, we're expecting through a webhook functionality, the ESB, which is subscribing to the webhook, can update the payment confirmation information, and through remote calling can update. It can it can update the order. It can also update the preferred payment method of the customer with the default flag, so that it basically creates a preferred payment object and the default flag as well. The system should prevent bookings if the capacity of the scheduled tour is exceeded. So we'll have a validation rule on the tour booking, whereas on the tour, when the tour has been defined, it will set up with the number of hosts it can take for each single tour on the tour schedule level, and we'll have a validation rule to cross check that if the number of tour bookings are same as the or the capacity. If it is more than the capacity, we'll not accept any tour bookings, so that the validation rule can help us in that process. Tour operators can also book on the system, so we should replicate the process. So for that, we are going to use ESB here. The tour operators, the ESB is looking into the tour operator information through the ADA protocols, and once it finds a tours, it's going to send the information to ESB into Salesforce, and we'll have an RCI, where remote calling, where it creates a tour booking for that particular customer. Within this RCI process, if the adventure does not exist, we're going to create the account and the tour booking, and that process orchestration would be handled by ESB. And here we can also see that there are multiple tour systems. So ESB is one of the good use case where you can also do protocol conversion for different tour operator systems. If adventure is booked on a high risk tour, a medical condition is booked. So based on the risk type, tour type, if it's a high risk tour, we'll have after recording a phone call, after recording on the tour booking, we will generate an waiver form through Conga, and we'll use DocuSign functionality for to capturing e-signature and send that customer and an email to the customer with that file. When the customer signs in, the DocuSign functionality can update the file back into Salesforce using DocuSign envelope functionality, so that we have the waiver linked to the tour booking. Now the tour has been successfully built and booked. Now when the adventure is part of the tour, now he's on the tour, he might have certain uh, he needs certain support. One of the first support is going to be that what adventure has ready to embark, they're supported with the tour guides. So we do extrapolated that the tour guides are linked to different tour types. So within the account information, we store what kind of tour guides that are available, and the record trigger flow would automatically link the tour guides to the live tour, or this can be done manually. So I'm assuming this is going to be because they wanted an automation. If the tour guides are linked to a region, we'll have a record trigger flow on the live tours on the tour bookings. As soon as a tour has been booked, the tour guides are linked to the live tour schedule, so that the adventure can know who the tour guide is. Any question and responses, we will have a chatter based on the tour. So each tour would have a chatter, record-based chatter, where the tour guides would be given access based on the record function. Will be given access, so they can ask for questions and respond to the questions. Adventures can also post that we'll have a global chatter functionality where adventures can post their images as well. So these images will be stored as part of the chatter feed itself. And we do have enough data space to store these files within Salesforce as well. At the time of the adventure, will also require assistance. So we'll have on the mobile devices, we'll have a screen flow to capture the cases, and the case would be the screen flow would capture the case for the adventure tour and would be routed. We'll have case assignment rules to route the case to the nearest service coordinator, and we'll have and after the cortical flow would send an email to the service coordinator to which the case has been assigned, but also will also have the same cortical flow in a different path will assign the right entitlement. The entitlement are not linked to the adventure, but they are linked to the various tour types that they're going to have. So this flow would determine the right entitlement and link the right entitlement to the case. SC must remain does not accept a request, RM has been notified. So if the SC has not, if the service coordinator does not log on to the case and change the case status, that will be the first milestone that we are going to measure. And based on milestone violations, we are going to send an email to the managers. In the second scenario, when on the priority cases must be reminded every 4 levels if the case has not been accepted. Again, this is going to be handled through milestone management itself. So we'll have milestone violations being built with actions, so that the SC would be reminded at any different point of time. At the same, every 4 hours till the case status has changed or the first milestone has been achieved. The certain medical conditions require high level of response. Again, this is a scenario where where entitlements and milestones would be a best use case and these different milestones will be created in the system and assigned correctly according to the record flow that I have mentioned in the above step. Update for the request to be integrated to field dispatch system in real time. For that, I'm proposing integration 7. So every changes on Salesforce would be sent to the dispatch system through ESP. But for that, we'll have the find and forget pattern, which is a change data control. So basically, the CDC flow, because every change would be automatically replicated back into ESP. ESP is listening and it can update back into dispatch system. So we will not have the functionality of defining which change needs to go. Every change would be sent across to the dispatch system. Also adventure to be able to chat with the service coordinators. So for the chat capability, because we are using the service cloud licenses now, we have the functionality of messaging for in-app and web. With that, we are able to and we'll have flows built in the as part of the customizing. We'll have flows and pre-chat data functionality built in the app, which will then route the case to the right service coordinator, so that the customers can chat with the service coordinators from the mobile app as well. GT calculates the assistant request at the fault of the tour operator. If 10 occurs are given, we need to adjust the risk level. So for that point, again, we'll have an integration aid where because there are a number of volumes of cases being created, and this is not going to critically change the business at the instance the case has been generated. I'm proposing a bulk data patch through using ETL, where ETL would read all the cases that have been generated on a single day for a root account, calculate update the account risk, and also update the risk object if required. GAT would like to track survey and performance for service coordinators. For this, we are going to have a survey object, survey functionality. So as soon as the case has been completed, after the contractual flow would send the survey invitation to the customer, and the survey response will be captured against the surveys. Moving on to the data migration requirements, just before we move to data migration requirements, just have a quick overview on the volume of the data. So this is based on the assumption that I have made some basic assumptions on here. The number of tour guides is not been given, so I have added certain volume of tour guides into the business, and I've recommended that they're going to be a 20% growth year on year going forward. With these calculations, I see the tour bookings are large data volumes on the day one itself, along with the orders, because we'll be capturing orders for the payment functionality, and cases are potentially to be a large data volume candidate going forward. So for that, we have a short-term and long-term mitigations. So the short-term mitigations is we'll have the custom indexing field on the tour bookings and the orders for the status field, because that is the one field that we're predominantly going to use to track what kind of tour booking it is. And we'll also use standard indexing. This will be used for all our SQL queries or any custom LWCs that we have built in, where we are going to look for this data. We are going to make sure that it is done on indexed fields itself. In long-term strategy, I'm recommending them tours to be archived as soon as the tour has been completed, or plus 10 days after plus X number of days of the tour has been completed. This definition of X would be defined as part of the project, along with the data stewards, to understand what is the best time to archive the tours. But the tools would be archived in a data warehouse on a daily ETL job, and these archive tools will be available as an external objects within the system using the OData protocol through Salesforce Connect between Salesforce ESB and data warehouse. And going forward with the cases as well, we are going to archive the cases, but here we also require the data stewards recommendation of how frequently we can archive the cases. And the long-term strategy, archival would be the same philosophy that will be used across any LDV objects. Moving on to the data migration strategy. First, data migration requirements. I like to just quick overview how the data migration will work. On the left-hand side, you see all the systems from which I'm going to collect the data. ETL will be used to the extract and transform the data. We'll first extract the data into the staging database, wherein the data stewards will provide us the data quality rules for DDO, cleanse, and match. ETL will build on these rules, execute, and create a golden record. Once the golden record has been identified, that record will be sent across into Salesforce. And for any records that are historical, we'll be sending that records into data warehouse within that same process. Before that can be done, we need to make sure there is a proper testing being executed. So data is first tested in small packets, and once the data has been tested and signed off successfully, we'll follow it by the full full load into the pre-prod of the UAT system. And once that has been successfully tested and signed off, then we'll load the data into production. And before loading the data into production, large volume data in any system, we need to make sure that first we defer the sharing calculations. ETL would make sure the records are grouped by ID, and it also has activated, and the ETL user also has a functionality to bypass validations. And during execution, we always make sure that the execution is done on parallel execution is executed. And once the data is loaded, we'll re-trigger the sharing calculations, and we'll execute some smoke tests to make sure the data quality has been maintained. The predominant use, we'll be using bulk 2.0 to transfer all this data, objects. And the sequence of objects is basically users, accounts, contacts, and then external users, followed by the reference data for the product price book and price book entries, tours and tour schedules, live tours, opportunities, order items, tour bookings, and cases. Now, moving on to the requirements here for data migration activities, you would like to import active tours and their schedule. So that is what we are mentioning here, where we are going to data stewards going to define the data quality rules so that we know what exactly the new tours are the open tours are, and once the golden record has been identified, we'll migrate the data into system. Deduplication is one of the biggest concerns that they do have. Hence, we are going to make sure that duplication rules are defined and implemented in ETL, but we'll also make sure that duplicated rules are also implemented in Salesforce, so that the new data that was created after migration is also clean and matches the data quality standard. So because it's a 24/7 operation with minimal cutover, one of the biggest risks that I would say is without a data migration plan, this data migration would be a huge risk. So you need to have a proper data migration plan being agreed upon and unsigned off, and that would require the data stewards giving us the data quality information as well as what would be the definition of a delta load is. Once we join data migration plan, we'll have a full load and we'll have delta load and what is the frequency of delta load and what is the threshold of delta load will also be defined. And with that, we should be able to reduce the risk of 24/7 operation, reduce the risk of GAT being affected by any data migration activities. Moving on to the accessibility requirements, single sign-on, I will say we'll have Okta as a single sign with Active Directory, and we'll be using Scheme API to provision and deprovision users. Tour operating apps. So again, we'll be using Okta with LDAP with SP initiated, SAM initiated flow to tour operators can access the Salesforce itself. Ensure service coordinators. So the service coordinator information is linked, is connected to Salesforce. But for here, we are going to make sure that it's a SAML-based service provider-based SAML being SAML flow through Okta, where the service coordinators can log into Service Pro from the Salesforce itself. For customers where they want to use the social sign-on process, we are going to make sure that we have an OIDC flow being activated with all those social sign-on providers being created as auth providers and individual reg handlers are being created. For the persistence login, the customers will on the mobile will make sure of user agent flow. TOCs can register requirement tour that have been created within the region. So we'll have an ownership-based sharing rule on the role of the TOC for the region, so that everybody in the TOCs can actually edit the tour operators information. Tour can only manage the draft tour schedules. For that, we'll have the tour operators will have a basic settings of user.contact is equal to tour.responsible contact. But for the operating managers, we'll have a different profile. We'll have a sharing set where it says user.account is equal to tour operator, so that as long as the account is maintained in the tour, they will have access to all the tour, all the draft tours. They only have the CRUD with the CRUD access will not give them any delete access of the tour data, so that they cannot delete any tours that have been draft tours, and their schedules are only visible to AS by the region. Published tours are scheduled visible to all. Published tours are going to be public read. Draft tours would be based on an ownership-based sharing rule, because the tours would have the region of the AS being linked to them, and as soon as the AS is the ownership of the tour, we'll have an ownership-based sharing rule within the region role, so that every AS and will get access to it, because AS have access to it through grant access to role hierarchy. Their managers to also have access to it. Internal viewers can view all the adventures and the tour bookings. So for that, we would have all the adventures and tour, because we have a criteria-based sharing rule on the internal for the adventures. As soon as the adventure has been created, as soon as the adventure has been created, with an internal, we'll have a criteria-based sharing on the account. And for the order object, I think it will have an internal sharing OWD as a public read, because everybody can read this order. So internal, so in my data model, the order would have an public read sharing. Only TOCs can view and edit the number of faculty. This is a private sharing model. That was the functionality for me to recommend the risk data object. The risk data object where they can only maintain it, and because only as an owner they can only edit the object. AS can also view the tour registration required in the region, require the follow-up X for those at high risk. So for the high risk part, we'll have a criteria-based sharing rule where if the high risk, it will be created, it will be assigned to the high risk group within that region itself. So as soon as a lead has been created and deemed as a high risk, only that group can have access to the lead itself. Adventures can only view their own contact information, tour booking assistance. So adventure will have a sharing set access where user.account is equal to transaction.account, so that transaction can be the tour booking, the case, or any other functionality. Tour guides can also view the details of the tour over 6 months prior to schedule. So the tour guides, because we are going to have a record, we are having CC plus licenses. We are going to use Apex-based sharing, where as soon as the tour guide is linked, the Apex-based sharing would trigger and give them access to the tour. But I will have a scheduled record flow of the 6 months of the before the 6 months of the tour. The Apex sharing rule will provide them access, and once the tour has been completed, the same scheduled record flow will remove the access to the tour after the tour has been completed. SCs and their managers should only be view adventure assistance assigned to the SCs. So again, sharing model on the cases is private. So if SE is an owner, he can see the access and the managers can see the cases using grant access through hierarchy. Adventures needs to be able to view the travel information past 2 years. So this one, because with the data is in internal and external objects, we are going to recommend custom LWC with restriction rules for external object. Scheduling over past 2 years, the data is LDV, so the data is LDV and we'll be migrating the data into archiving the data into data warehouse. I'm recommending a CRM analytics report. For upcoming tools, they can use standard report. Hence, I'm giving them the CC plus licenses. Office managers require report of the staff. Adventure tools, again, they will have a Salesforce report to where contact would be used. Tour contact would be used as a functionality to report it on it. TAT management would need summary of all travel booking. The trend booking can be achieved better with the CRM analytics dashboard. GAT has two IT structures, so they have a very complex IT teams. Hence, the governance of this project is pretty important. So with that, I'm going to recommend my governance structure. We do have an executive sponsor on the top, wherein the steering committee would be the combination of all the two CIOs and any major SMEs that are required. There, the steering committee is supported by COE and the legal and it should be marketing as well, legal and the marketing team, because they are required to sign off any new developments. The steering committee will oversee three different boards. One is the architecture review board, which is going to take the ownership of the technical work streams, which will have technical work streams reporting into it. That work streams are going to be the Salesforce integration, data migration, quality assurance. They should have also a mobile work stream here. And in terms of the program board, it will have the responsibility of making sure that business is in line with the project goals, where the business would include the SMEs, related stewards, and the translation team as well. And the change management board will make sure that the GAT is ready for changes and the training management. So they will have responsibility of change management, training management, release management. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I think I lost my screen. I stopped my clock at 41:36. I'm continuing from there. Clock. Sorry. The change management board will have the change management, training, and release management. So they will be responsible for all these activities in here. Moving on to moving on. So with that governance structure and the top-down approach, making sure everybody aligns to the overall project goal, with the GAT is going to be set for a better project experience and better governance structure within the project. The second scenario that they have is because of their experience of ripple effect changes, they want to make sure that their release management is properly planned. Only severe one and defect will be allowed as a releases. For that, I'm recommending them they have a release management plan is properly sorted and they have a branching strategy being built in. So within the branching strategy for any hot fixes or severity, we'll have a hot fix branch being executed. So once the hot fix is being to do a certain hot fix, the pull request will come from the main to the hot fix. The fix will be done and send it back to the main. Once the fix is gone into the main, it will be back propagated into the lower branches, and it will be responsible to release management team, to make sure the back propagations are executed. So that actually solves us the scenario of back propagation, and we'll have automated regression testing being executed. I'm going to recommend them the Selenium as a test suite for automatic regression testing. So every time a test have been every time a push has been done into the system, make sure the regression test scripts are updated, and the regression test will give them the functionality of making sure all the existing functionality is working with the new features that have been released. And to make sure that the release is also propagated, we'll have release notes being maintained that can be linked to the Jira and the Confluence, which are going to be my ALM and document should be Confluence, not Conga. Memory doesn't work sometimes. Payment for the critical changes. So because it's a system and it has to go through a rigorous testing, we need to make sure I'm seeing this as a risk as availability of system. So this can be mitigated with the integration plan with a contract first development approach, and the testing plan has to be agreed, making sure everybody is aware of it, and then the development can start on this. Has recently two outages. So Salesforce Trust Platform actually provides a certain SLS for the business, and I recommend the GAT to approach Salesforce AM so that they can get a better trust. They can increase their SLAs as part of the Salesforce services being provided, and that can be part of their business SLA functionality. It's heavily contractors. So I think one of the major reasons of being a churn rate of so many users, I'm going to recommend them to have Jira and Confluence as the documentation ALM management system. So every user story and everything is documented properly. So the knowledge is not seeping through with the users being done. Then we recommend them to use the hybrid methodology because of the functionality that hybrid methodology to deliver the project, and because of the hybrid methodology, the requirements have to be signed off before the build can be done. Use a big revenue stream. I would say change management more towards the requirement changes that provide conflict resolution with the help of COA and ARB, and the guidance from the steering committee where any conflict does arise so that they can follow the guidance. Integration development without plan is a risk, as I've identified, and I have recommended the approach in here. The methodology is going to be hybrid methodology, and in terms of development branches, this is by brand strategy and the boxes that I've mentioned here. For in terms of source control, I'm going to use GitHub, CI/CDs for the gear set, testing suite will be Selenium, and UTAM would be the functionality would be used for the mobile publisher app testing, and static code analysis would also be done with gear set. So the developers would be using the developer branch. DevPro is for conflict resolutions, partial is for the QA and data streams, full is for the business and the QA analysis for regression testing. Production is for the business and release management for smoke testing as well. With that, I complete my presentation, and here are my recommendation and open for questions.
Hey, Vamsi, are you good to start now?
Yeah, good to start.
So, and I believe it's 40 minutes Q&A, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So can you go to your system landscape, please?
Yeah.
Can you let us know your mobile strategy? And you mentioned mobile publisher, so can you tell us your mobile strategy, please?
Okay. The reason the mobile strategy is there were no offline requirements for the users to access anything offline, or there was no pixel perfected UI that was required. The basic usage was that they need to make sure that they will access their tour schedules, or even the able to change, able to book tours, or respond to the raise a case on the mobile. So I'm going with mobile publisher as an approach. And for this internal users, they would be just need to make sure they approve the tours and tour schedules online. So that should be able to that they can actually do on a Salesforce basic mobile app. So Salesforce mobile app, and again, there was no requirement of offline functionality, hence only mobile app, not even mobile plus.
And what are the considerations I need to take in for mobile publisher?
I think one of the considerations we need to consider for mobile publisher, making sure that the release management of mobile publisher is being agreed upon first, because once the app has been tested to your standards using the UTM protocol, it needs to be then submitted to Salesforce, where Salesforce can handle the packaging of it and publishing it, submitting it to the both Android and iOS providers. So that strategy has to be considered as part of the program management, making sure that the plan for mobile publisher is agreed upon in the hybrid phase. And
Thank
that
you.
would determine the go level as well.
Thank you. Can you walk us through your social media box on the system landscape, please, in terms of user experience, please?
Yeah, I just want to swap here for that functionality here. I think let's say sorry, I can do it here. So when the customer is logged into the Experience Cloud, they do have a functionality on the login page to say that you can use one of these social media logon accounts to log into the platform. So then let's say they click on the Google account, then the user will be redirected to Google login page, where they authenticate on the Google login page. After the authentication, the Google would ask them for the consent to be transferring the information across into the Salesforce. When the consent has been provided, the user would be then redirected to Salesforce, where they're authenticated and they're on their homepage. Under the hood, the functionality that we are going to do is make sure Google is set as an authenticator provider. We'll have a custom reg handler which handles this functionality of receiving the token, receiving the information from the Google, and making sure that the user is authenticated. And if the user does not exist, in the Salesforce system, it actually creates the user using within that process itself.
And we have another two social medias like Twitter and I think LinkedIn.
Yeah,
So
LinkedIn.
what is that I need under the hood for all three to work together?
I think we I'm going to recommend them that all three have three different auth providers being created and also three different custom reg handlers. I prefer to be keeping it simple. For example, if one provider changes certain functionality, then we only need to change that single class rather than changing the whole class, which handles everything else. So all those three would have individual auth providers being created with individual reg handlers being built in.
So if I have a Facebook ID and a Google ID, do I get two separate user logins?
You will not get two separate user logins. The authentication process because on the Salesforce user account record, we maintain the data as a third-party link, so that the third-party links would be maintained at the user record level, and the user would be and all those links between two different Facebook accounts and the Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter accounts would have links maintained at the user level. The only assumption that I'm going to make here is that the same user email address is what the user is using across all these three auth providers.
Cool, thank you. Navita, you want to go? Or Chandra?
Okay. Since you're having three different external users, tour operator, tour guide, and adventurers, right? How many experience cloud site you're proposing?
I'm proposing a single experience cloud. I'm not splitting the process here, but I'm going to make sure the pages have the page. I forgot the word I'm looking for. There is a functionality within Experience Cloud where we can restrict which kind of profiles can view what page. I'm going to use that functionality to make sure that pages are only available to that profile users.
In that way, how you will segregate your single sign-on experience, because your tour operator would be logging using Okta, whereas your adventurers can use Facebook, Twitter, or Google, right? How you will manage it with a single experience cloud site?
I think on a single Experience Cloud on the login page, we'll have three links to say that it's a kind of another login Experience Cloud login page where we say that if you're three boxes, if you're a tour operator or you're an adventure seeker or a tour guide, click here. That will direct them to the login page, which they need to go through itself. It is a complex orchestration function that we need to do. I can simply go ahead and split the process into three portals or two portals required, but there are no very strong definitions other than the login experience that the portal has to be separate. Hence, I'm taking the risk of making sure that the login experience can be orchestrated using the login flows and experience builder pages for login where we can handle this experience.
What in future if we onboard certain different type of personas, right? Still you recommend this solution?
Even that scenario, right? Even in future onboard, if I split it into three portals, and if the fourth user come in, then I need to go with the fourth portal experience. So I'm keeping on increasing the portals. So rather than that, I would stick with this process. And if it really becomes imperative at that point that it's going to be total user experience, total objects to be used, and total different UI setup that need end, at that point, I'll make a recommendation to split the portals, but not currently.
Okay, Navita, you can go next. Navita, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was not able to unmute myself. Am I audible now? Okay.
Yeah.
So here I see ETL is getting connected with your current Salesforce. Where exactly ETL is loading the data? In which all systems?
Oh, sorry. I should have missed it. ETL. There should be a connection between ETL and Salesforce in the first place. The ETL is loading the data into Salesforce as
Okay,
well as
so
into data warehouse and staging during data migrations. Data warehouse for archival data that is coming in from Salesforce. There should be connection between Salesforce and ETL. Very rookie mistake. And Sorry, go ahead.
Which protocol you would
We'll be using the
which
bulk to
Hmm.
Salesforce will be using bulk 2.0 protocol for the data, please.
why bulk 2.0?
Bulk 2.0 gives us much more flexibility of loading the data in parallel modes. It has got better support than the bulk 1.0. For loading the files, we'll still be using REST API. For I think it's only for the record data, we'll be using bulk 2.0 functionality.
Okay, thank you, Sivanand.
Yep. You mentioned that you're going to use Salesforce files. What are the considerations for your file strategy? Do you look at some of the volumes in terms of there are photos which are being loaded by customers? So what is your recommendation for those kind of volumes which are coming from customers?
I did make a basic assumption here, just to look at my calculations. I'm assuming there are going to be total 1,000 users in the system. So that gives me around 2 terabyte volumes of data. And within the 2 volumes of terabyte data, I have assumed that out of which 125 GB is only used for the files that are loaded by the tour operators information, for example, their certifications and everything. And then that still gives me close to 1.5 terabyte of data for files and photos that are being available. And the assumption that I'm being made here is once the tour has been made live and the tour has got certain live instincts, live stakel, the information of the photos can also be maintained, can be stored. But at a certain point of time, when the tour gets archived, the chatter gets archived and the files will also get archived from the database. So this storage should be sufficient. In the additional scenario, if there is additional storage required, Salesforce can provide you the blocks of additional storage that you can purchase. So hence, I have not seen any major requirement of moving the data across into an off-platform file storage system.
And what is your recommendation for me to secure my file storage in terms of my customer user or the adventures can load any number of photos, or do you have any recommendation for that?
I think on that with the digital experience side, you do have a setting where you can control what is the file size that you can upload and what kind of file formats they can upload, and we'll be using those digital experience size settings to control the file upload functionality or to control the file upload functionality.
Thank you. Chandra, do you want to go next?
Coming to your file strategy only, continuing on that portion, where are you archiving the files along with the data?
Currently, in my current landscape, the archival of the files has not been considered because the files are only loading at the tour and the tour operators and the tour chatter section or the account section. With the data calculations that I have currently inbuilt, I still am not archiving. The tours are only at 144,000 over 3-year period. So if I start archiving the files, once the tour gets into situation, I think yes, when we're archiving the file should be archived into a AWS environment. I would recommend them to files to be archived into AWS environment because the data would be in a data warehouse anyway. So you need to have a file archival repository, which is not part of my current recommendations.
Okay. Can you take me back to your system landscape? How are you integrating payment force with Salesforce?
I'm integrating payment force with Salesforce using through ESB. So wherever the integration happens, the expectation of protocol conversion and everything is happening through ESB itself. Because payment force is is behind the firewall, it will be secure through the reverse DMZ proxies as well before connecting to ESB and ESB. So that is my integration protocol. Is that what you're looking for, or much more specific to the use case?
Specifically, while presenting, you specified that you have taken an assumption that there is a hosted page provided by payment
Yeah.
force. Now, since your payment force is behind firewall, how that hosted page experience will work?
Okay, I think in that scenario, the assumption of the hosted page experience is that because there is a current process that is available, they were taking payments. So that assumption is where I have taken it from. The hosted page would be hosted by the payment for system, and it will be secured through a reverse proxy within DMZ layer. So nobody can reach the payment force as an endpoint. When ESB is sending the information to asking ESB would send the information of the account ID or the transaction ID with the order ID information with the amount and requesting payment force to provide a hosted page. Payment force will respond to the hosted page through ESB. ESB will then serve the page back through Salesforce in the request and reply pattern. When the user fills in the and user is provided with the page, user fills in the information on the page, and submits for the payment. At that point, I'm assuming that payment force has a webhook available, which ESB is listening to. And as soon as the payment has been successful, the webhook would update ESB would listen to the webhook, get the success and confirmation of void messages, and update back onto the LWC or to the order to say that what is the success of that order is or of that payment is. So that is the user experience that I'm assuming it's going to work with.
Okay, Navita, you can continue.
Sure, data model, please.
Data model, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I see entitlement here. Who is the parent of entitlement?
Sorry?
I see
Sorry, I could
entitlement.
not hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see entitlement object. Is there any parent for entitlement, or entitlement is just standalone?
Entitlement is standalone because I'm not linking to any account. The reason being, entitlements are defined based on the tour, based on the kind of the risks type it comes through or the priority and the cases. So I'm assuming the assumption or recommendation here is entitlements are created as standalone entitlements which are same across the organization. They're not linked to a single account.
So is this entitlement a standard object?
Yes, this is a standard object.
What is the relationship between account and entitlement?
Yeah, that's a good
Is
point.
it
Entitlement and account are in master detail. It's master detail. So I can't have entitlements without. Okay, sorry. I'm going to change the solution a bit here. Entitlements will have a master detail relationship with the account. Every time an adventure is being created, all the entitlements, which are the standard entitlements, would be assigned to the adventurer as part of the record trigger flow. The reason being, as you said, it's master. As we said, it's as we agreed. As it is master details. So whenever a case gets created on the account based on the case priority type that is being defined and the case functionality, that is whether it's a high risk route or whatever, the right entitlement would be linked to the case. Yeah, it should have a lookup into master detail relationship to account.
So which account it is? It's a customer account, right? Vamsi?
Adventurer, yes. Adventurer
Okay.
to the
Thank you.
adventurer
Yeah.
account.
Thank you. Shiva, to you.
I have one follow-up on this one, if it's okay. Yep. So, Vamsi, since you are populating entitlement on an adventure account, right? For each adventure account, you'll be populating the entitlements on the case. Let's say 300K adventure accounts are there, right? Now,
Yep.
from those 300K, 200K have raised cases, right? So
Yep.
you create a entitlement for those 200K accounts.
Yes, because there is an entitlement requirement across all those accounts. The reason being, if a case has not been accepted for certain scenarios, we need to send out an email. In certain scenarios, after 1 day, after 4 days, as well. So to differentiate these entitlements, I would like to use the standard out-of-the-box functionality to make sure that case and entitlements are always linked. So I can use the milestone actions rather than recreating a different flows within the system to handle this.
Okay, that answers my question.
So you said you're using the products and price books. Can you explain to us how are you modeling the products and what is your recommendation for the price books?
Yeah, the products for me are basically handled. I'm not figuring. I'm not. There are not huge volume of products here. The products I'm assuming is based on the tour type. that they're going to have, and for each region, the tour types, because they're having a boutique 500 operators with 20 tours. So I'm assuming they'll not more than have 1,000 products at max. So, but there are generic products which are called the registration fees and everything. So the products would always be all about the basic registration fee and the tour type defined product. And we will have price book per region to say that, because the or price book per region, to make sure that we can maintain the regional pricing for that particular product. Within a single US region, there can be 4 prices for the US Canadian dollar and everything. So the idea for me, the products is the first 1,000 basic global products that will be used. Price book are regional based pricing, so they can understand that pricing, and price book entries is for those current currency based pricings that can be used. So whenever an order line item is getting generated from a tour, or from the opportunity, or from a tour booking, we do know from the tour booking what kind of tour it is. Then we'll identify the right product, through which we'll from on the region we'll identify the right price book, and from price book we'll identify the right price book entry, and that will be added onto the order line item, and the price can be and price is visible, which will be then be used for the payment transactions.
Cool. Thank you. Chandra, do you have?
Yeah. So since you have specified that your products are generic tours, right? Now,
Yep.
as a tour operator, I want to list down few certain new tours, okay, every year. Then how that process will work for me, how I can add products.
Okay, I think if you are having a generic tour operator and you want to add new tour scenarios as part of the TOC, whenever the new tour has been added and the opportunity has been created for the adventure specialist to moderate, he can cross-check what is the tour that is being done. He's doing his basic checks. If certain tour is not available in the system as a product, I think that is the point where a internal process has to work between adventure specialist and the team who's going to manage the products and price book entries. That is not given scope, but I'm assuming there's going to be a team that is going to manage it. And that is an internal process to make sure that the 2 price book entries have been maintained, because before the tour can be approved. So I would say this is a kind of a change management process within the business, to say that when you can't find a product which is linked to a kind of a tour, you need to follow a certain business process to make sure the product price books are updated before tour can be approved.
Yeah. Now, since global adventure tours are dealing with tour operators, right? These products will be listed by tour operators. So as part of that, GAT would be getting some revenue, correct?
Yeah.
Where is that specified that for this tour from this tour operator, I will get X number of revenue? Where that agreement is done in this particular data model?
I think that okay. So whenever the tour is getting created, we have this opportunity being generated within the opportunity forecasting amount. The forecasting amount would be updated what the tour can actually be provided. The AS is the adventure specialist is updating the opportunity. So that will give the opportunity forecast of what that tour is going to generate the revenue for. And this is not linked on the product, but this is a conversation between tour operator and the AS. Hence, the opportunity object has been created here to handle it. I have not seen any contract-based negotiation or a contract that needs to be signed before this tour is being made live or tour is being sold. I'm assuming the live tour is that functionality which says that this is an agreeable tour that is being sent across. If the requirement is to generate it as a legalized contract, then this opportunity would be converted into a legal contract, and contract would have an amount, and from which you can actually generate the forecast. Opportunity will give you the forecasting, and contract would give you the actual revenue part of how much the tour is being generated.
Okay,
Will that answer your question?
Yeah, I just have one additional questions from order and order line perspective. What is your assumption that as an adventure, how many tours I'll be booking as part of a single transaction? It's one or multiple?
Tour booking is one, because you're looking at one single tour schedule to check which dates you are going to go in.
Okay.
So I'm assuming
Yeah.
it's going to be one single.
So let's say I'm an adventure, and as part of live tour, when I'm creating a tour, we are creating order line item, then other price book related objects are involved, right? Don't you think that
Yeah.
does it make sense to go with these many number of records just for booking one tour? Can't it be done with a custom object like a booking?
Can't be done, might not be the right one. Yes, it can be done, but I want to use the order line item because there's a pricing involved, and that gives you a straight out of the box functionality to control the pricing part of it, rather than redesigning a pricing module within the tour booking system. Customizing, I want to stick with, and we are giving the same licenses. The license does give you the functionality of order line items, the order management functionality as such. So I want to utilize that. That is my rationale behind using order line items.
Okay.
Okay, so continuing on the data model, I see tour guides is a custom object.
Yeah, tour guides link tour guides are basically the account as an object. This one is just a object which says that on which schedule which tour guide is linked to. Naming convention is not correct. I think tour guides booking. Let's call it tour guides booking.
So
Booked
for
tour
one
guides.
tour, how many tour guides can be there?
For one tour, I think because in a tour guide, I think for one tour there can be multiple tour guides, but for one tour schedule, there is to be 1:1. So one tour schedule or live tour schedule will have one tour guide linked to it.
So do you need this object?
That is a very good question. If I have a look up onto the booking of the tour guide, yeah, I think I can live without this object. So I'm going to change my solution here. There will be lookup into the tour guide, tour schedule into the account for the tour guide. And as soon as a tour schedule has been generated, we are going to check for that region if the tour guide is booked on certain date for a tour schedule from the live tour object. If it is already booked, then we'll recommend them to, there should be a different tour guide that would be part of this tour schedule object. And once the tour schedule object has got the right tour guide lookup being created, when the live tour is being generated, we'll copy the same tour guide into the live tour schedule as well. Hence, yes, so we will not use this object, but we'll just have a lookup into the account at tour schedule level and the live tour schedule level as well.
Okay, thank you. Shiva, to you.
Do we want to move to the solution? Let's go to the tour operator management section, please. So while you go there, you are using form assembly, round robin distribution, and Conga and other App Exchange products. Why would I require this? So you're also using custom LWCs in multiple places. So can you do a customization of this? For example, the round robin. Can you do a customization and solve this?
There is a customization that we can do this to solve it as well. I think the customization includes creating formula fields on the user as well as on the lead. The users would having a formula field to say what is the user numbering required. Then the formula field on the lead would calculate what would be the number that need to allocate that user to. This can be done, but this is quite when the new users are coming in, when the new users are being created, the new users have been deactivated, it becomes a lot of manual overhead maintenance to create and update these things as well as change management process. With distribution management App Exchange product, it will be much more easier to manage it. It is also, there is going to be change management, but it's more easier to manage it. And in future, if there are more regions being allocated and there are more functionalities or more granularities required, the round robin distribution engine is well placed to even handle that functionality or the volumes rather than going with a custom solution.
Cool, thank you. Chandra.
First business process, first requirement, you are recommending a form assembly, right? What's the rationale behind that?
I think the biggest rationale for me is not the volumes of it, but this requirement here, where they need to upload the files. I could have done that using a unauthenticated portal with a screen flow or a custom LWC in here, which again is a build-based mechanism. We need to maintain the unauthenticated portal. But Formless is an out-of-box solution with an App Exchange package and a connector, which does all these things for you. So hence, I have recommended with a form assembly package.
But in order to book the tour, you have also recommended an LWC, right? for adventurers?
Yes, that one for here, the booking a tour is we are in an authenticated portal here, and we need to see the tour schedules as part of a user-friendly manner with a lot of sorry, tour adventure. Yeah, LWC with a lot of filter functionality as well as a map component to show them the tours across the map as well. To leverage to give the better user experience, it can be much better easily done with a custom LWC component.
Okay, again, same requirement go up. Tour operator management. Yeah. So here you are calculating some score, right? And if score is greater than 50, then a skilled adventure specialist needs to be assigned based on the capacity. How you are maintaining
Yeah.
that?
This one, I have gone with a custom solution on this one as a capacity. So I think one of the fields that I'm going to have on a capacity is on the user record. As part of the program, we are going to agree upon for each region what is the capacity of open leads that the tour operator can handle. This will take into consideration that they handle the tour scheduling as well. So within the project governance, we are going to define what is this capacity, and at the user level, we'll have a field to store that capacity as 4, 5, or 10 leads every time. And then it'll be around and the custom field which will capture how many leads that are currently assigned to the currently assigned to that particular user. And then we'll have a simple formula field which calculates, okay, what is the capacity left. So as the real round robin trigger would make sure that only when it will fire only when there is a capacity for user, will assign it to that user. Whenever a lead gets assigned, there will be an asynchronous after record trigger flow with an asynchronous path to update the user record to say to the number of new leads that are assigned to him. So the capacity is always updated. So that is my proposed solution on this.
What if adventure specialists have multiple skills? Okay, so the skills are like more than one. Then how your solution will be scalable here?
I think this one is that is skill that is they're only talking about very high risk operators here, right? I think that's one single definition. If there are multiple skills and there are multiple functionalities around it, then I'm deemed to go towards the omni-channel functionality within Salesforce. That will change my licensing. I need to get a digital engagement license for the users. And then with that, I can do skill-based routing. But the requirements here, I'm not seeing that's a huge functionality. But if the requirement changes that, yeah, there will be multiple skills and multiple other functionalities to look for, then I'll recommend them to use the digital engagement for omni-channel with omni-channel.
Okay, Navita, you
Sorry,
can.
but I have a follow-up question on that. So this is a multi-country kind of scenario, right? So my operators, if they have multiple languages, which I say they are different skills for the high risk operators, so would that fall under your omni-channel solution?
Even though it's multi-country, these adventure specialists are local.
Mm-hmm.
So hence I went with a custom solution. But let's say you are rechanging the requirement that they're not local adventure specialists, just an adventure specialist by default, and they can work on multiple regions. Then the skill of language also comes into consideration. Then even then the omni-channel should be able to will work on that scenario.
In this scenario, you're sticking with your custom solution, or what's your recommendation? Are you going back to Omni?
I think I'm going to stick with the custom solution because it's a local adventure specialist with one single high risk level being identified or risk operators. If the requirement is completely changed to multiple skills, then it's omni-channel. If it's exactly for this requirement, I'll stick with the standard requirement because it's additional cost on licenses on digital engagement.
Okay, thank you. Navita.
Yeah, please move to next section, first requirement. Yeah, this one, tour proposal and scheduling. The third point, it says that GET would like user-friendly method for tour guides to review and update. Can you please explain how you're achieving this?
Yeah, as soon as the tour schedule has been generated, we'll have a after record trigger 4 to update the opportunity within tour schedule. So once the opportunity does come into existence, the AS is assigned. So AS will have on his screen to say tours to review as a record. Sorry, as a tab. When he clicks on the tab, he actually gets the list of all the proposed tours that he needs to review. So which is basically taking the combination of the data from tour and tour schedule and opportunity that is being generated. So the details will be provided in a list view with kind of a grid formatting where he can make changes or accept the changes accordingly. So that is the solution I'm envisioning.
So you talked about AS or you talked about tour guides right now?
Oh, sorry. This is there are two requirements. Sorry. Tour-based review and update status of multiple service requests at once. Okay, so my mistake. This requirement here is going to be for tour. This requirement for here is for the AS. On tour guides level, I think I'm going to stick with tour schedules because they are linked to the tour schedules itself. And within the tour schedule, they can have a list view, and I'll have enable inline editing on the list view so that they can update the schedules within the inline editing with the fields that they are allowed to change. There will be just inline editing on the.
And how will they get access to tour schedule?
The tour schedule, we have a requirement here in the accessibility say that they will get access to the tour schedule only when there are 6 months. I think there is an accessibility requirement. Apex sharing. Details of the tour up to 6 months prior to the scheduled tours. So I think if the tour schedule is within 6 months period, we'll have an Apex sharing rule through the flows to give them the access. But here, this is actually contradicting this requirement.
Yeah, can you please explain that in detail? You mentioned 6 months. Yeah. How will Apex sharing will work? I mean, how will you do it?
Yes. Yeah, I think the scenario here is as soon as a tour schedule has been generated, and within the tour schedule, a tour guide has been allocated to the tour schedule. If the tour schedule is within the 6 months period, we'll have a scheduled record trigger flow being created on this tour schedule. When the current today's date is less than or equal to 6 months of the start date of the tour schedule, the sharing record will be created against the tour schedule object for the tour guide to be able to see this tour. So that is the process I'm recommending. And the only thing I'm now cross-checking is there would be an assumption that I need to make that this action here is only done during that 6 monthly period. So the tour is not able to see the tour schedule before the 6 months of the tour. So the tour should always be at least 6 months. There should always be a 6 month time period before the tour schedule can get, tour guide can access to the schedule.
Okay, sure.
I have a follow-up on that. So for your tour guides, which kind of license you have provided?
CC plus.
Let's say CTA doesn't have a budget, okay? They want to go with CC license for tour guides and still they want to solve this requirement. What would be your approach?
If they want to do a solve 6 months requirement, then I can provide them access with a sharing set, and the record trigger flow here, rather than create an Apex sharing rule, will link the tour guide to the tour schedule object. And once the tour schedule object is updated with the tour guide, the standard sharing set of user dot account is equal to tour schedule dot tour guide, then they'll get access to this tour schedule.
Now, if this is possible with declarative way, what was your rationale for going with Apex? And
I think that the reason for which I went with the Apex is not clear validation of when the tour guide is allocated, because there was a scenario here which says that They can give a capacity planning for 12 months, and then there was another requirement to say the tour guide has to be linked to the tour object during the schedule creation itself. So the 6-month period only came up in the accessibilities. So I'm assuming that the scheduling can be done at least 6 months prior to the tour has been scheduled, but they need to know which tour guide has been allocated. And then only at the 6-month period, the tour schedule is the tour guide is given access to the schedule. So there were two different timelines. So that was my rationale to go for CC plus and go with Apex sharing.
Okay, so what is your final solution? You recommend going with Apex, or you will go with a declarative?
If I'm going with a declarative solution, I need to change with an assumption saying that the tour schedules will always have a 6-monthly timeline. So even though when the tour is created 12 months in schedule, tour guide is not allocated with 12-month schedule. That will then clash with the business process requirements. To satisfy all the business process requirements, I'm going to go with the CC plus solution and make sure that tour schedule is CC plus and have Apex Pay sharing allocated.
Okay, can you take me to your adventure request business process? Scroll down. There is a requirement that if capacity of a particular tour is out, right, then they should not be able to do the booking, right? Now we are proposing a validation rule. As an adventure, I'm going to a tour, I'm trying to book, and you're throwing me an error. Can't you just be preventive and stop, just hide the tour, or just display a message that this is out of this tour cannot be further booked?
Yeah, I think that again, this is linking with this requirement and this requirement here. The validation rule is required in the system because we are getting bookings from the ESB from the tour operator's office against each system as well. So the validation rule is to prevent this API-based bookings to come through. When a scheduled tour is reaching a capacity, yes, I would go with an approach where the tour within the custom LWC, we are going to check for the tour booking capacity, and the capacity is 0, then the tour will not allowed be to book onto the UI. But I still need this validation rule to make sure it can be done on this level.
Okay, regarding integration 6, do you think that all of your tour operators would be able to consume this API? Do you think they have those kind of advanced system where they can integrate directly with your GAT system?
I think the assumption that is being provided, some of the operators already have an EDI-based protocol where they can push information. So we are reutilizing that information for that system. If all tour bookings operators don't have that functionality, they would have. Then I would say that they can use the LWC function from a tour operator point of view to make their own adventure bookings in the portal as well. They will also follow with the same process. But the concern here for me is that if they need to use the portal as their first point of contact for all their booking information, they cannot use Salesforce or GAT Salesforce as a secondary booking system because we are measuring the bookings that are currently loaded from the adventure from the portal itself. And we should avoid double booking process as well. So
Okay,
it can be done, but there should be some business process in place.
okay, I'm good. I think we are out of time.
Yes. Any last question from anyone?
No, I think we can close
Can
here.
I ask a last question?
Okay,
Go
go
for it.
ahead, Chandra.
The next requirement of that one only, that adventure have to sign a form, right? Just below that. So that form would be quite simple. It would be a consistent template, right? Why you're proposing a Conga to generate that? Can't just DocuSign do it?
Because we'll have multiple languages, right? It should go with DocuSign can do it with DocuSign template, but I already have Conga to generate the template for the PDF formatting above. So DocuSign standard template can do for each language it can done, but I already have Conga in the platform to do this PDF-based attachment anyway, so I'm reutilizing the same tool
Okay.
rather than multiple tools.
Okay.
Okay then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me stop recording.